books are made of paper, cloth or leather. These have two main enemies, fire and water. This program looks at how to stop these enemies attacking your library and how to cope if disaster does strike.
I first heard about the fire at 9 o'clock the next morning after it had been burning through the night, and one of the members of my staff rang me up to tell me that the library had been burnt down in Newtown. I couldn't believe what I'd heard. When I got there, I found horrified staff standing round. I found the emergency services still working on the building, which was smoking. There was water everywhere on the floor from two broken mains that had, two broken tanks that had burst over the floor. The water main had burst, and books were still smouldering in the book stacks, which were still standing. Glass, which had burst out from the windows, was lying all over the floor. We had a dreadful situation on our hands.
Fire and flood can strike anywhere, anytime, but always when you least expect it. Are you properly prepared to cope? When you look around your library, can you identify the potential hazards? How safe is the building? Is maintenance work carried out regularly? Regular maintenance will reduce potential hazards. And what about the books? Are they at risk? All libraries use equipment like this. Is the wiring safe? Check it regularly. And is your fire alarm system adequate? Most libraries will be equipped with a manual system, but a manual system is only effective in working hours. Installing an automatic alarm system will provide 24-hour cover against fire and will detect heat and smoke. There are also automatic fire extinguishing systems like this sprinkler system. Watch out for smokers. Staff should only smoke in the canteen, and the public should not smoke in any part of the library. Whenever there is a fire, you can also expect water damage. Here, books stored near the ground will soon be damaged if there's a flood. Book presses should stand on a plinth at least 6 inches off the floor, or just leave the bottom shelf empty. Books are stored near skylights. They're protected from water with polythene sheeting. These pipes could burst during winter. Don't keep books near them. Give added protection to rare books by keeping them in boxes or watertight cases. And keep very rare collections in a strong room where they'll be safe from water and fire. Even the best prepared library can still have a disaster, so when you've taken precautions, draw up a contingency plan. There should be a rota of people on call in case of an emergency. Each person should have a copy of the contingency plan at home and keep one in a safe place inside the library. What should the contingency plan include? Amongst these books, what would you need to keep? Where are the valuable items? Some books, if damaged, can be thrown away and easily replaced, But what about special collections or rare documents of the local area, or special bindings or manuscripts? Draw up a priority list for salvage, and remember to include your catalogue. In a disaster, it could be your only guide to what is lost. Make sure all books are insured. Insure for salvage and conservation treatment costs as well. Think through what you would need to do if a disaster had just happened. Your main priority is to minimize the damage to your stock. Very wet books can be frozen. This will buy you valuable time and protect them from mold and swelling. Arrange emergency cold storage with a local freezer center now. This will save you valuable time later. Draw up a list of books that can be frozen and check that they are made of material that will not be damaged by freezing. You'll need to prepare books carefully before freezing. Make up a salvage trolley with the equipment you'll need to give first aid to wet books. Keep it safe and in a central location. You'll need to get books like this repaired. Establish an emergency arrangement with a conservator. You'll also have a building to dry and a lot of water to get rid of. You'll need to hire water suction pumps and dehumidifiers, so establish contact with a professional salvage consultant who can give you expert advice. Work out who to contact now. And draw up a rota of library staff to act as disaster control directors. These people are responsible for assessing damage to the collections and are in charge of the salvage teams. Make sure someone is always on call. And prepare your staff, for they should all be trained. Write all these points out in a contingency plan. Despite precautions, a fire has started and taken hold. Although it has not burnt many books, many more have been soaked by fire hoses. Now there is a race against time to ensure material that can be saved does not deteriorate further.
Hello, yes. Yes? What? My God, where? Was anyone...
You are on the rota as this week's disaster control director. You need to move quickly and efficiently following your contingency plan. But what do you do first? You won't be allowed into the building until it is safe to enter, so first call the people you'll need to help you when you do get in. Your salvage team, salvage consultant, and your local freezer center, so you'll have access to all the equipment you'll need. Once inside, you must stabilize the temperature to around 15 degrees centigrade and get air flowing through the building using fans and opening doors and windows. If you suspect mold, the building will also need to be fumigated. The salvage consultant has installed a dehumidifier. You will need an emergency generator to run this and other electrical equipment. Arrange it with the building's officer. Your volunteers need to have protective clothing, some overalls or a work apron, plastic gloves for handling books, and rubber boots for wet areas. First, hang polythene sheets over any undamaged books so that they do not soak up the damp, as they will be removed from the library last. At each stage, the disaster control director asks a member of staff to supervise.
Be careful. Now, this is the area where we've had the worst damage, and I want to start clearing this area first. Now, we'll do it this way. I want to divide into two teams. Carolyn, will you take Edwardine and Emma with you, please, up to the periodicals room and get a sorting area arranged? Okay, you'd like to start that straight away. Kevin, I want you to organise a removal team here and form a human chain to pass the books off the floor and load them into the crates. Okay, clear the floor first. Work your way gradually towards the presses. When you get to the presses, remember, start at the top, not at the bottom. If you go the other way, the press gets top-heavy, it can topple, and I don't want anybody hurt. Okay? Now, when you're handling wet books like this, remember that the binding is already under terrible strain from the water. So if the book's open, leave it open. If it's closed, keep it closed. Oh, and don't try cleaning any of the dirt off at this stage. Just put them in the crates as you find them. We'll clean them up later. Now, remember too that the wet books are much heavier than dry books, so don't overfill the crates. We've still got to be able to handle them. Now, we've got microfilm in there. Do your best to keep the film and the boxes together so we know what we've got. And when we've got loose papers like that, keep them together as best you can. Don't take too much trouble at this stage, because we'll sort them out later. Okay. Right, on you go.
When removing books from the disaster area, clear floor areas first, empty shelves from the top working downwards. Remember, wet books are heavy. Don't force books either open or closed. Don't remove dirt from books. Keep papers together. The books will now be sorted and dried and need to progress steadily from one area to another. In another room, the Disaster Control Director's sorting team is about to start work.
At least they'd let us in fairly quickly. Now then, I want to get straight on with the business of sorting the books, and we'll sort them into categories by how badly they've been damaged. All right? Now, first of all, I want you to set all the historical books aside. Now, you can identify them by their bindings and also by their date, and just for simplicity, we'll treat anything printed before 1800 as a historic book. I want you to put them all in one place, and we'll send them for specialist treatment later. Okay?
What about this one?
Now, a book like this, books like this that have got a lot of water on them, they've been thoroughly soaked, you can see that the structure of the book is already damaged and under pressure. So if you find them closed, leave them closed. If you find them open, leave them open, because any further movement will make matters worse. Now, books like this, which are printed on glossy or coated paper, remember that coated paper tends to stick together when it's wet. So the way I want you to handle them is like this. Put them on end and fan them out like this, and we'll put them in the wind tunnel and let the air get right in between the pages.
Is that every page?
We'll open them out as far as you can, as much as you can, like that.
Okay.
Okay. Now, cheap paperbacks like this, they're fairly easy to replace, so put them all in one place. We'll make a list of them, and if we decide to throw them away at the end, we can always get new copies. Now, a book like this, you can see it's not too badly damaged. It's got a little bit of wet on the outside, a little bit of wet on the edge of the pages. You can either open them out flat and let them dry naturally like that, or you can put pieces of blotting paper in between the leaves and let the blotting paper soak up the damp.
All right.
Okay.
And what should we do with burnt books?
Now the burnt books, you can see they're very fragile, and I'd like you to handle them as little as possible. Put them all together in one place, and we'll do the best we can with them afterwards. Okay.
All right.
Now, single sheet material like this. I'd like you to spread out some of the blotting paper on the table, separate the leaves, and lay them flat on the blotting paper so that they dry naturally. Okay? For microfilm and microfiche, now that's the one material that we don't dry. I want you to put it all into the plastic bucket with clean water, and we'll reprocess it later. It won't come to any more harm meanwhile.
Okay.
All right. Now, would you like to start dealing with the single sheet material?
When sorting books, keep like books together. Don't force books open or closed. Fan pages of art books or plates to air dry. When books are just damp, use blotting paper to interleave pages. Keep microfilm wet. Handle burnt books carefully. It's important to organise volunteers into teams and give them time to warm up with cups of tea, because the building may be dark, damp and very cold. Next, you must decide which books need to be air-dried and which can be frozen. For example, microfilm and vellum must be air-dried, never frozen.
We've got an awful lot of very wet books. I want you, please, to set up a wind tunnel in this area. Take the books that are only slightly damp, like this one. Slip the blotting paper out from between the leaves, and then stand the books up on their end, like that, and fan the pages out as widely as you can, so that in the cold air from the fans, the pages dry out naturally. All right. Now, if you find any large books that are too big to stand up on their end like that, lay them flat and come back at intervals and turn the pages so that they all get exposed to the cold air. You can use the same method for books bound in vellum, like that, as long as they're only slightly damp. And where you've got a pamphlet or a paperback that's too weak to stand up on its own, open it in the middle and hang them over the line like the pamphlets there. All right? May I leave you to get on then with setting as many of these books out as you comfortably can on the table. Then put the plastic sheets over the top and start the fans going. And I'll go and see about the books that need freeze drying.
Here, cold air fans are being used to form a wind tunnel to dry out these volumes. The fans are switched on one by one. When drying books, use cold air, fan the pages out, hang pamphlets over a line, lay large volumes flat and turn pages periodically. And these books are being packed for freezing because they are badly swollen. Use linen bandages to wrap the books, working from head to tail. Secure the bandages with a safety pin. Wrap each book in a polythene bag and remember to label each book with its shelf mark. Pack wrapped books in crates with the spine downwards to prevent the text block tearing away from the binding. Books taken to a freezer centre are put into fast freeze, which takes about 2 hours. Don't defrost your books until you're ready to try them out. They can dry out in cold air, or specialist facilities for freeze and vacuum drying are available. Ask your salvage consultant. And any conservation work can be done afterwards. Freezing your books buys you time to arrange for this work to be properly done.
With hindsight, if only we had had a plan already prepared so that we had some trained staff who knew what to do and how to deal with the situation that we found there, we would have been able to make much more use of the volunteers who did come and offer to help. The difficulty was knowing what to put them to, which was of immediate help to the situation.
Remember, your most important priorities are the safety of staff, the collections and the building. Taking precautions will not make your library immune to disaster, but careful advanced planning will mean that you are prepared to cope if disaster strikes.